observing my family under threat from malevolent individuals right in front of me. I was reminded of the harrowing scenes from my childhood. These recollections linger in my mind, haunting echoes from that distressing period. Before jumping into the story, please leave our channel a like and a subscribe so we have more motivation to create more interesting content. Frequently waking up in nightmares, thinking back to the scene back then, I sat helplessly crying alone in my room. My family is one of the famous corporations with a rich history. My father is a successful businessman who single-handedly built the company into what it is today. But because of that, many people became jealous, so they harmed my family, causing my family to die, and I was the only one who survived that terrible night. Over time, I grew up, and being busy at work partly made me escape my childhood obsession. Now I've become the president of the corporation that my father owns, thereby understanding the hardship of always being scrutinized and envied by others. Lying on the bed after a long, tiring day, not knowing when I had to work so hard like this, I quickly fell asleep without realizing it. Once again, I got lost in that dream, in which I was crouching in the corner of the wall, and the footsteps of the bad guys were coming closer and closer to me. I was scared and covered my eyes with my hands. Suddenly, a loud noise sounded right at the position of the person who was about to harm me. Immediately after that, all I heard were the painful screams of those evil people. I confusedly lifted my hand that was covering my eyes, and standing in front of me was the image of a row of extremely cool guys holding the necks of the bad guys. He alone handled them in an extremely cool way. He rushed towards me, gently picking me up, making me stay silent with sparkling eyes. But that memory gradually faded. I suddenly woke up in the middle of an unfinished dream, and there were no cool guys there. Thinking carefully about what happened in the past, I asked myself why I was the only one to return alive after that haunting day. The image of the man who rescued me kept appearing, and my head makes me blush. To keep myself awake and focused, I buried myself in work, to make myself not think too much about the past. As usual, I had lunch in my office, looking at the financial reports on the table while biting the bread in my hand. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door from outside, distracting me. "Come in!" Seeing no response from the other side, I gently approached the door and slowly turned the doorknob. And just as I opened the door, suddenly a strange smoke sprayed straight into my face, causing me to be stunned. I covered my face and took a few steps back, only to see a group of completely masked people approaching. Bad memories reappeared in my head, causing me to panic and fear, then faint without realizing it. Waking up with a headache, looking down at my tightly tied hands and feet, I suddenly screamed, struggling, but it was all in vain. At the door, a hooded man suddenly appeared, scaring me. He looked at me with a disdainful expression.
"We finally caught you after all this time. Do you know how difficult those guards are to deal with? Look at your face, it's so pathetic. Now the news of your kidnapping has hit all the newspapers, Gabby."
What? What is your purpose? Tell me quickly. If not, don't blame me for being evil.
Oh, if you don't know, what we need is already here. What we need is your life, Gabby. But before we kill you, I think we need to have a little fun. Ha 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 ha.
Not believing what just happened, they appeared again, wanting to rob me of everything again. Just as I was about to give up everything, a loud explosion came from the wall next to me, startling the kidnappers and pulling out their weapons. Behind the smoke and dust was a very familiar figure that I had always remembered. The person who had rescued me from harm that day had appeared again. He picked me up and helped me escape from the kidnappers. This time I got a closer look at that face, that handsome face without any dead ends. At that moment, it seemed like I had fallen in love with this guy. I was taken to a safe shelter by him. Looking at the badge attached to his shirt, I realized that his name was Tony, and this guy's appearance reminded me of the person who once saved me 13 years ago. But at that time, I was still too young, so those unclear memories could have made me misunderstand.
Are you injured anywhere? I'm sorry for being late.
Oh, no. You came at the right time. You are also really cool. No, nothing. He just gave me a wry smile and placed me on an old mattress. Then he moved around somewhere for a while and then appeared with a cup of hot cocoa in his hand. Wow, what a sophisticated and handsome man. We had a small talk, and I discovered Tony had a half-human, half-machine body when he took off his shirt to reveal his mechanical arms and toned body. It made me unable to take my eyes off of him, so I tried to find a way to get closer to that body. But just as I was about to approach Tony, he suddenly came closer to me, making me surprised and unable to react. But contrary to what I was thinking, he turned his hand to press a strange button on the wall despite let me be so embarrassed that my face turns red. I quickly regained my composure and suddenly a secret door opened, catching my attention. I couldn't believe my eyes. It turned out to be the door leading to the room where Tony often lived. Walking down with him, I was overwhelmed by the modern technology he owned. After talking for a while, I was shocked to learn his real age. Tony told me that he had been alive since the beginning of World War II and almost lost his life, but survived and was brought back by the same organization that kidnapped me to experiment on his body. Oh my God, he's lived for almost a century. Wait, is it possible that Tony is the one who rescued me 13 years ago? That thought kept going round and round in my head, making me so distracted that I didn't pay attention to what Tony was saying. It wasn't until he said my name loudly that I suddenly realized it and smiled wryly. Every time I look at Tony's face, a strange feeling mixed with shyness inside me makes me blush. He told me that I would have to stay here for a while to avoid being discovered by the bad guys, but I couldn't stay in the secret room anymore and could only stay temporarily in the outside room, so I was quite upset, a little bland. After all, I at least want to be with this handsome guy. Tony also gave me a lot of books to entertain me, although what I need more is a smartphone. But for my safety, I think I will have to endure it for a while. Having been with Tony for a while, I realized that he was not as cold as I imagined. But on the contrary, he was very warm. I discovered that Tony was a very gentle person and did not show murderous intent like when he fights with bad guys, and this makes me fall in love with him even more. But the peace didn't last long. One time, while enjoying a cup of hot cocoa mixed by Tony, I accidentally dropped the cup and caused myself a slight burn. He was very worried and immediately gave me first aid. We accidentally looked into each other's eyes, and I saw Tony's cheeks turn a little red, but he immediately turned his face away, making me shy. But right after that, he pressed me hard against the wall and held my hands tightly, making me bewildered. Before I could understand what happened, a loud explosion rang out right behind Tony. A group of strange agents rushed in, claiming to be from my company, to arrest Tony and give me his international wanted notice. Looking down, I was startled to discover that Tony had fainted from the explosion after using his own body to save me from injury. I was scared and hugged him tightly. The other agents started coming towards me and took him away. No matter how hard I tried to explain that he was wronged, but no one in their place listened to me. A loud thud on the back of my head made me faint immediately. Woke up with a headache. I discovered that the room was locked, so I couldn't open the door normally. I couldn't help but worry about Tony's safety. So the moment I saw the stick in the room, I tried to use it to break the door to escape the room. Tony once said that he had previously been experimented on in the organization's secret room, and he told me the location of the lab, so I was easily able to find the lab's location. I secretly sneaked to the laboratory where Tony mentioned, peeked through the glass door, and caught my eyes with the horrifying scene of Tony being brutally tortured. His face looked very haggard, so I was so worried that I immediately rushed into that room to stop the bad people from harming Tony. But it was my mistake, when right after that I was tied up and beaten painfully by those evil people. Tony, after seeing me being beaten painfully, went crazy and lost control. His eyes turned red like a ferocious beast, and he tensed up and tore off the chain that was tied tightly from his hand. Then I witnessed the entire scene where Tony slaughtered all those evil bastards. But because he was so angry that he couldn't control his behavior, he accidentally caused a disaster. One guy grabbed me and held me as a shield. Tony has unconsciously stabbed the knife into my body, causing me pain. Right after that, Tony seemed to realize his mistake. His eyes turned back to normal. The thug guy just ran away, so it was just me and Tony. More blood began to flow out, and I gradually lost consciousness. The surrounding scene gradually turned black, and I could only vaguely see the image of him picking me up and running as fast as I could. Slowly closed my eyes, and that was also the moment I fainted. I thought I was going to die, but a miracle happened. I slowly opened my eyes, and in front of me was Tony breathing a sigh of relief. It turned out I was lucky to escape the danger. Immediately after that, I rushed into Tony's body and hugged him tightly. "Are you okay? I was so worried about your safety that I accidentally put you two in a dangerous situation." A strange feeling began to appear. Why doesn't he answer me? Suddenly, my body stiffened and couldn't move no matter how hard I tried. Tony started smiling incomprehensibly in front of me, making me scared.